Alrighty, we're live. Hello, I am Verdi Arbusto, and this is the Schumann Resonance Harmonics channel on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you for being here. If you are new, welcome. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And let me offer you this, that if you haven't heard from your favorite YouTube channel in a while, go over there. Make a comment. Thumbs up a video. It will help in their ratings, their algorithm, and you will see more videos from them. Okay, that's just a friendly YouTube public service tip for you. Okay, it is Sunday, January 17th, 2021, and we're actually around the time of my grandmother's birthday, had she been alive. It was January 23rd, if I remember correctly. Or maybe Ellen, my stepmom. I get the two of them confused at this point, but my stepmom Ellen, her birthday was in January. I think maybe that was the 23rd, and my grandmother's was the 17th. It's been a number of years. My grandmother's been gone for a few decades, and Ellen's been gone for a little while too. So blessings and love on them in their spirit and who they are and where they are now. All right, so I'm going to kind of hopefully just jump right into this because this is a rather large lesson, and I want to present the information as a whole and as cohesively and coherently as I can, and just focus on the material and make one video where it's, where I'm not sidetracked, as I tend to be. I'm pretty sure what I'm going to do. This is actually a pretty in-depth series. This particular part A here is in itself long, or relatively long relative to a short video, or quote-unquote short video. So what I'm probably going to do is make a series of like 4 or 5 of them and put them out, not as a premiere, individually as a premiere, but probably put them all out, and then maybe a premiere on the last one, and then that way people have had a chance to watch them. That kind of a thing. Just as a side note, I really like doing the style of video where I do, the basic informational, and then I have a live stream so I can, we can talk about it, and go more into depth about what was there. And so I personally find this to be successful, and I know that you all largely who I talk to enjoy this as well. And that way we can address the people who want to hear just the information, right? I think that's fair. And then the others who want to have music, more fun, more, interaction with each other on a personal level, and then the chats. And as those of you who are there know, I can get a little distracted on in the chats, so that's a thing as well. That when I do the solid pre-produced video, the informational videos, I tend to be on track, and I want to be on track. I want to stay focused. So you have just the information, and you can relate to it and refer to it, et cetera, et cetera. I think that makes a lot of sense to people. It does to me. It did to me when we were thinking about it. Okay, so a brief introduction on this. This is the second part, I guess, in a series of dimensions. We're basically talking about what is 5D. The last one, I differentiated between dimensions and densities in an introductory kind of way. I'm going to go more in depth into that. But first, I think it's important for us to have an understanding on the side of the dimensions, because this is the common way that people have come to think of these terms, and which is what I go into. So the first thing my guides have directed me in, like I said, I gave the distinction, and so before talking at more at length in detail about that, I need to present some earlier material. Before moving on, I needed to present some earlier material, which, as it turns out, is from the 3rd of January in 2019. So we're talking about this like 2 years ago. I wrote this expecting to do videos from then, or then, around then, and I had started doing that. I had started doing one on dimensions and dimensionality, and that material is still good. It's still there. It's still valid. But this is taking that material and working with it contemporarily from the perspective of the Schumann Resonances. All right. That first particular video that I did the live stream of after that, that was as a result of a comment. It was like the the impetus of this series was the reason for posting it now. Like I said, I wrote it in 2019. It wasn't time. I didn't know, my guides, and I wasn't ready. Some of the material wasn't ready, and I'm still working on it now. So my guides had said to me that, just get it ready, and when it's time, it'll be time. And so the based on the question I got, first and foremost on my video, it made it relevant. That's when my guide said, "Bing," game on, as it were. They ring the bell to announce the opening of the ring, like as it were in boxing. As it were, as an analogy, the opening bell of the stock exchange. So, because like the warning shot, as it were, had been fired, it made it like, all right, so now's the time. You got to bring up this information, and so that's what I've done, and that's what I did, and that's what I've done, and I'm continuing to develop this information in a relevant way, and not just the general way that it had been originally when I had written it before I was dedicating everything to the Schumann harmonics, Schumann resonance harmonics. So, in part, based on the one comment by Jana, which it was fine enough that it could be based on that. I have done that with other viewers in the past, and subscribers where I made videos, and I do that. I respond to my comments. I respond to my readers. And that's one of the things I think that makes my channel a little bit exciting, new and fresh, is because I have the input from the viewers, from you guys. You are direct, you direct me kind of and get me off track. And sometimes it frustrates me and sometimes it frustrates you. It's a thing. But we're all in this together, like it or not. And so as a result of that, it's important to know, not just that one comment that we decided to do this. It's that the one comment was the kernel for me doing it now. Does that make sense? Either way, it doesn't matter. But there's a lot of other people, what I'm saying, and what I did say was that me and my guides are looking at this as if it's not just one person, but say if it's you who posted that, there's also 30 people next to you or 30 people behind you who are also wondering the same thing, but don't know how to articulate it and may feel a little bit embarrassed for asking, or don't know that that's the place and the time, or whatever. They're just too shy. It's a thing. I can understand all that, or not having the right set of words, the vocabulary. That's a big thing as well, of why people don't kind of speak what's on the mind, say what they mind, say what's on their mind, and especially when asking for help in these spiritual matters, people don't know, they don't have the right vocabulary, or they believe they don't, they feel they don't. And part of that, we talked about this yesterday, okay, or the previous session, we talked about the lexicon is a shared vocabulary based on a mutual experience. Could be based on a class together, right? Okay, right? Like lawyers or doctors, they take classes together and they know the same material. Okay, so, but even then, still, there are the practicals, what they call the practicals. There's the theory. When I was at the tech, there was 2 weeks of theory, and then there was the other 2 weeks of practicals, where you were in the shop and you actually welded or you worked on cars or whatever. So, so that's that's what we talk about in the trades, is that there's the theoretical and the practical. Even if you know the material, you still got to test it. That's how you know the material. We know you know the material is we test it. Okay, so this is once again, this is kind of just a introduction of kind of where I'm at, where I've of the part previous part to this. Uh, so do I think that's probably a good introduction there. All right. So at this point, I think I'm ready to actually read the material. I think I am anyway. Let's see what we got here. There we go. Okay. So, and some of this I've kind of already gone over. So it's not, you know, it's not necessarily that there's all the preliminary part here is all entirely new. Okay. So let's read. What is 5D? Dimensions, dimensionality. The part A is the first most important part of this is on learning. This is one in a series of presentations explaining dimensions, dimensionality, and density. This is a series of expository writings based on my conversations with my spirit guides, who have instructed me to bring out this information at this time. Generally speaking, the touchstone of grounding in this discussion is that I am working to always relate this material to the practical application of understanding of the Schumann Resonances, and I work to ask this question: how is it helping us to learn more about the topic at hand? The last section or discussion dealt with the distinction between dimension and density to some detail, to give the description of the two polarities which are represented in the mind of humans. Humans are essentially hybrid creatures created from the brains of two separate progenitors, the primate and the reptile. These two polarities are generally at odds with each other in communicating. These are essentially the two hemispheres of the brain that we have. Okay, before I go further, I probably should have said this from the beginning, but this is all what I have been has been revealed by guides, basically. This is, I might otherwise say, this is what I know in a higher dimension, from a higher density, from different guides, from a different place that's not earthbound. So this either resonates with you or it doesn't. You can take it or not. You can, as you see fit. But I'm going to just tell you that I'm not trying to challenge anyone's belief or changing your belief. I don't have a sales pitch because I have nothing to sell you, okay? Furthermore, I mean, if you want to make a donation, that's great, but I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have a belief to sell you. I don't have a salvation to sell you. The salvation is yours entirely, right? That's what I have for you, is that you are the author of your own salvation, right? I mean, I'm just a guide. It's on you to do the work. right? So I don't have a magical, wand or nothing that forgives you. What I have is what I have done in the past that has worked for me. And then from that vantage point, I have the ability to give you what I know that has worked. Like I said, it's from a different source than Earth teachings, I guess, but it is still human in its essence. What I'm giving you here. All right, and I think as maybe a disclaimer, this may or may not be a good point, but a good point to say this, but I have brain, BRAIN. There we go. Much of this that I am giving you here now was actually downloaded when I was a teenager. It activated. I think that's the best word for it. So a lot of this information here that I'm giving out now, I've been holding on to for 30 years, 35 years. And I haven't actually put it. This is in many cases, in much of the stuff I've talked about here that I've known for. I've said, well, I've known this since a teenager. This will be the first time I've ever talked about a lot of it. I've never, like in 2019. This is the first time I've ever written a lot of this stuff. And so this is. New for me, and I was explaining to someone who's helping me here that essentially I explained to her that I've been silent on this and quiet on this for so long. It's just easier not to talk about very complicated things that drove me a little bit insane. I'll just put it that way. And so now that people regularly are talking about 4D, 5D, 6D, and all of this, that's driving me crazy, really. And I'd rather have this up here that is the reference than people keep jabbering on and on about what 4D, 5D, 6D is. Like, just shut up. You have no idea what it is. Right? And so that's part of what the motivation for doing this now is that it's like, oh, someone needs to have another voice and all of this, bickering over 4D and 5D and who's in, like, oh, give me a break, man, just please. So part of this is a cry for help or a cry for mercy, if you will. Okay, so essentially this is what the bicameral mind is, or the dual hemispheric brain organ. Okay, it's that there's two completely different constructs of reality based on the perspective of the way the brain, either hemisphere, is wired. And even then still, the more important functional element of the brain is still the software, which are hormones. Okay? Hormones are like I said, the software that allow the hardware to interact with the sensory environment. Okay? The phenomenological world, as the Buddhists call it, is what I would call the sensory perception world of the suit, the body suit, the instrument, your sacred instrument of the body. Okay. All right. So, as we have previously stated, dimensions are the invisible, formless, shapeless, non-thing force, energy, which does not exist without a density to contain it or conjoin with it. Densities might be seen as repetitive patterns or the 93% wave of probability. Okay, that's one way to look at it. Before moving forward in understanding, we need first to clear away some information which is conditioned in the minds and hearts of students, indoctrinated into and by the public educational institution. Okay, that should be an AL. All right, and that's a D. All right. Okay, what is 3D? There's a great question. When we ask that, before, how do I say this? Before moving on to the question of what is 5D and what is 4D, we need to establish what is 3D. We need to build a lexicon of vocabulary, of our vocabulary of joined, conjoined phrases. And what does it mean, right? So part of what I'm doing here is I'm giving people an understanding of what 5D is. Great, but first we have to come to terms with what 3D is. And as I said before, this information drove me crazy as a kid, a teenager, so I'll let it unburden you. I will unburden myself with it and give it to you to hold on to and see if you do better. But as the world goes crazy and breaks down, it's like, all right, now it's time. That's why my God said, it's time, let it loose. All right, so what is 3D? What is 3D? What's it to you? What's your feeling on this? What's your completely subjective idea on what's 3D? That's what a lot of this kind of discussion here is about. In some terms, it's like, well, it is what you believe, and all right, well, those are the dimensions. They're invisible, they're formless. It can be that as well. Like if you want it to be of that sort, where it's invisible, it can be that as well. It's a world of illusion, world of imagination, the veil of Maya, the world of forgetting, the veil of forgetting. It's a circus. The world is just but a stage. Take your analogy. What do you pick? Make it positive. Onward and upward. All right. Dimensions. In common understanding, within the indoctrination of the public educational institution, as based on my own personal experience growing up therein, the phrase dimensions is one based upon the necessity of the builders of the grid or the cubic matrix. Builders are giving you measurements as dimensions based upon physical geometry and the materials being altered. So when I say the phrase material is being altered, what I mean is sending it to the mill to have it cut. Your dimensions and your standard. Right? You have to have a unified standard so that when you're building, that you all are talking the same language. And it's really important to remember that in all the trades, there's a certain code that comes with it. And we hear the term code, light codes coming in, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. But this is part of one of the things we are talking about, we're looking at, is who is making the determination on the phrasing that we're using, right? To me personally, I try not to use 3D, the term 3D. For me personally, I say third density, and I will explain to you what that means. Okay. Third dimension relates to the builder's matrix that we're talking about here. So when we talk about 3D, I say third density. Me, this guy right here uses the phrase 3D equals third density because we are still things in the body, right? The thingification is the densities as dimensions, or whatever. Sorry. So what I'm talking about is the understanding of how to my understanding, how this phrase has been used and what this means. 3 dimensions. Okay. And why when a person uses the phrase 5D based on this as the first, this as your first 3D, and then you count up from that, you're left at a dead end. There's not any other way to put it. When you start at this, at the builder's mark, the mason's counting system, what? Why, oh, why? Hold on. Wrong one. Sorry. I keep doing that. All right, so tell me something. Why, oh, why is it important for you? All right, there we go. To look at your spiritual progress in the ascension, so-called ascension. Why is it so important for you to look at this in terms of 3D, 4D, 5D? Right? Like it's a quantifiable, verifiable thing in that sense. Like the builders, you have non-linear time. Like I don't get it. I don't know. I don't get it. And in some ways, I'm kind of like I really don't want to get it. I don't care because it's based on not a perspective of knowing what it is you're racing. Like you're in a race. Oh, I'm not at 5D yet, but I'm gonna get there. Right? A lot of this seems to me like that. The race for the prize. I don't know, but it seems to me. I try to acclimate a lot of this, and that's one of the problems, the issues that I have in this is me not seeing this as a type of stair step of evolution, if you will, where people are looking at like 5D is the promised land. That's what happens after. I don't even know. And like I said, I don't care because it's confusing for me to have to think in those terms when it's like this is just BS for you anyway. You're just kind of being manipulated by the builders. And so that's part of what this is, why my guides have told me that you need to put this information out and you need to do it now and soon, So that's what we are doing here. Okay? The original builders, founders of the cities, established human society when they were given a choice upon the coordinate grid system. The coordinate grid of the streets and avenues is the reimposition upon the grid, that should be grid, upon our everyday lives, everything you do. Measurement and the scientific method becomes the means by which to in the conquest over nature, over the natural cipher. Okay, I'm still working on the writing of this. All right. So one of the things that we talk about Descartes and the Cartesian grid, and I'm going to have to go into this in a different time because it is of itself rather involved and complex. But essentially, the Cartesian grid is the XYZ axis that you see when you have graph paper. that's 1 inch by 1 inch. That's a Cartesian system. Uh, um, like I said, a square, a square on equal side, and then a cube on equal side. And so, regardless of whatever thing you're measuring, it all gets dissected and interpreted through a cube that is the measurements are equal on three sides. Okay? Like building a building and geometry and teaching you and all of these things, they tell you your units have to line up inches to inches, and you need to convert it from feet to inches or yards to inches or pounds to kilograms or something like that. You have to make sure that it's all lined up equal to equal to equal. All right, so it's part of what that we're talking about here, of the establishment of the Cartesian grid and the gridification of your world, but in not a natural type of way, as you'd see here, all right, in this kind of fitting that sort of fits and sort of doesn't quite fit, but it's harmonious there. Okay, the picture in here, it's harmonious because it goes through the number values of 1 to 9, and they can all fit inside each other like harmonies. Okay. So the Cartesian grid gives you the 90 by 90 by 90, and yet it's still missing one more 90, which is reserved for an invisible force, which is time. Okay? So your first four dimensions, when we talk about the builder's code as it is, when we talk about the builder's code, the first four dimensions are length, height, width, and linear measurement. Okay? Time is money, right? We are all unified in our time. De facto, that invisible 90-degree angle which exists in theory, time is a dimension that is invisible. You can't measure time except through harmonic motion, through simple harmonic motion, through repetitive actions, through the work of a clock, through a mechanized mean. Time is essentially the invisible substrate underneath everything that keeps everything separate. So the first nexus point of time and space is with time. Right? And so the original builders, when they set forth the grid system, gave you the square, then the cube, and then took the natural cycle of the cipher, of the circle, and divided it with the compass into points which would approximate time. Right? The 12 and then 24 of the clock approximates the amount of uniform hours, uniform movements around the earth. One day, 24 hours, or one one full cycle of a year, 365 days or what have you. But the clock with the pi divisions is how you subjugate linear time, how you picture linear time, which is otherwise an invisible dimension. So already in using the builder's 3D code, you've shortchanged your head. You fucked up your head, basically. You've confused yourself by giving into it. Like, oh, okay, that sounds good. All right, sure. You've gone down a dead end road. Okay. When I was a teenager, I was given this stuff so that I wouldn't fall down that dead end road. And then when we were talking about dimensions and densities, say, now what? And then have a picture of a cube and a cube, like, oh man, no. Oh, honey child, no. You're a hot mess. If that's the view you have of 4D into 5D, is this cube and a cube inside of a cube that you look like. I don't know what that means. I really don't. I don't know what that means. So one of the things that you have to understand is how you're being, manipulated, how the understanding of time is being manipulated. We talked about the first density of time is linear time, but it's not just the one of the clock, the linear time of the clock. Time can move backwards. It's possible by looking at it from a higher dimension. You can see things moving backwards, right, or a different place. Time is linear, but then can divide off. Time is its own dimension that is very wild and it's uncontrollable, and that's why they just dismissed it. They just dismissed it, right? We're all going to operate by the. They didn't dismiss it as such. They dismissed the differences in time by unifying it under the one sexagesimal system of the 6 base 6 base 10 system, 6 by 6 by 10 based system of the Sumerian count, which is where you get the shar, essentially the shar of 3600 by 60 by 60 is 3600. Okay. Well, where was it? So part of what you have to look at is kind of the nature of the observation of time and space relative to yourself, and not how it's described by the builders or the scientists in some funny way, right? This is one of the things that I was told coming into this, is how the dimensions are not just a invisible constraint on paper and absolutely meaningless otherwise in your life. I was given this information of how to, I don't want to say manipulate time and space because it's a bullshit thing. We do that anyway. If you follow follow your guides, you have an ability to move non-linearly through time space, and that's not relevant. But my guides have basically told me that this is the time to present this to people, because they need to once again unlearn what has been given to us for the intention of keeping our focus off of what we can do and what our abilities are. And part of this whole prison of the 3D, 4D, 5D matrix, the dimensional well, the gravitational dimensional well of the number codes, is that the reality to do more, if you can focus your consciousness without it being constrained by the imposition of the builders of the prison. There's no better way to put it. That's what the grid system is. That's what the avenue, streets and avenues is. That's what the square grids are. That's what the cubic buildings are that are just block buildings. It's from the brutalist school of architecture that you get such things, but it's certainly the in some cases prisons look actually more decorative than some of the buildings downtown here. Truth be told. So hopefully, in order to make things a little more fun for us all, me especially, my guides have said it's time that people get this and know some of this stuff. And that way you have some fun chat partners that'll have interesting, fun things to chat with you about. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. All right. So all right, yeah, that confusing jargon of the sentence. All right. So the square and the compass become the means to the subjugation of nature. This element I have gone into in more depth and more for. Okay, so oh yeah, I was going to talk about Rene Descartes. So I'm going to have to talk about the Cartesian grid and Rene Descartes at some other time. But essentially, he's the father of the scientific method, the grandfather, if you will. And he was visited by angels. He was perplexed. He was visited by angels. Uh, Basically, that's what he kind of calls them, who gave him the key to opening up nature. And that is essentially scientific method. The base of the scientific method was measurement, and that's how he comes up with the Cartesian grid. But Descartes was the one that said, "Cogito ergo sum," that, or a better way to put it is "Dubito cogito ergo sum," which essentially means, "As I think, therefore I am." But what he's really saying is, "As I doubt, so I test those ideas, so I think, and so therefore I am, as as I've gone, that has gone through the ringer of my head, and I found some kind of a logical, stable point in this, then I can, I can wrap my head around things as making sense. Otherwise, everything's all, the only thing that's not consistent is change itself, or the only thing that doesn't change is change itself." I think that's the expression. So he's trying to find a place, a logical place that he's not doubtful on. Is this true? Is this correct? And so what he eventually comes to the conclusion of is he's got to measure it. He's got to verify by external objective proof that what he's got is the correct answer and what he has is the truth. Right? So that's partially what the scientific method is Descartes having declared that he was logically shaky, if you will, that he was doubtful. He was doubtful at his methods, doubtful at a lot, and at a certain point he invented calculus to kind of help him figure stuff out, which is pretty impressive. So that's one of the reasons why they used the Cartesian grid, because he kind of did some, heavy duty thinking attached to it. But it's like, well, I'll tell you what, yeah, he did a great job, but that's part of one of his declarations on this, is that he's looking to kind of subjugate nature and wrest the secrets, W-R-E-S-T, the secrets from the natural world. When he coined the phrase theory, right, it originally meant theos, and Descartes was not English. Descartes was French, I believe. So a little closer to Latin, if you will. So when he is talking about theory, theos is the root of theory, and theos is divine. The root of theory is to understand the divine. Easy enough to understand. Hypothesis, hypothesis, right? Of course, now that they took God out of everything, right? The ego removed God, or ego removed God. There is no more God or the divine in science. It's just been removed. And so theory means, I believe in some shit, so I'm going to blow something up to prove I'm right. Like, that's basically what a theory is now. I'm going to destroy something, wreck it, blow it up, stab it, put it under a microscope to see if I'm right. Okay, so just in a general way of putting it, this may not be technically accurate to you, but I'm giving a general, you know, now and then of science between Descartes of where it was of a of observation as the way to observe and determine the divine, theos, divine, as opposed to now what they do, which is they smash atoms and blow it up, and it's completely different. All right, so onward and upward. Um, Scientifically logical. All right, I'm still working with some of the writing on this. Scientifically logical foundation of reality becomes largely based upon the physical modality of the Cartesian grid and the Cartesian grid coordinate system. Okay. The Cartesian grid archetype is a system of three axes, which are generally the x, y, and z, which define the interior location of a given space or the measurement within the interior of a cube. Okay. Do you understand that? Basically, and I'm going to have to find maybe a picture of a Cartesian grid coordinate system so you can see it better. But everyone who's taken like trigonometry and geometry, I think is the measurement thing there that they do, that you've been given an x and a y axis. You chart things on the x and the y. And so the Cartesian system is the XYZ, which is the three-dimensional space, which is assumedly and allegedly defines your three-dimensional reality, if you will. Okay. Take me out of the bowl. Okay. All right. So a six-sided, flat-bottomed, uniform state, which is equated to the space, time-wise, I'm not sure what that means, of the locationing points or coordinates, such as matter and physics are based upon squares or squaring to 90 degrees of angle relative to an arbitrary starting point. Exists, oh, this is my Yodification, exists, there does, no random happening which placed so narrowly the nearly identical spelling of angle with angel. So basically I'm saying it's not random chance that whoever it was, when they managed to, assign names to things, that they come up with angel and angle, right? How do those two so closely related? I don't know, but it is curious. Made me curious. In material reckoning, everything physical which is angular or angle-based. And we have these phrases such as, what's your angle in this? Are you on the square? Or is that a square deal? Is it a level playing field? Okay, so these are, this is actually a pause, good place to pause part one of this, and that's why you see the, see attached color wheel graphic, what did I say? See attached color graphic, attached graphic of color wheel mandala. Okay, I don't even know what I wrote there. But it's almost an hour into this. It's like 50 minutes. Like now is a good time to take a break, right? You can pause this at this point. I'm done talking. You see, I'm literally at a stopping point here. And I had wanted to talk about the mandala. And in fact, I think this is a good point for me to stop because I'm going to make coffee and then go on talking because I haven't lost track of where I am. Actually, in fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the mandala. I'm going to talk about the mandala here, what it is, maybe for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to make some coffee, and then I'm going to go back on with the rest of this. All right. So basically, this mandala is, I made it. Okay, first and foremost, I did this. It's watercolor pencil and watercolor. All right. So this is the it's equating colors with uh with numbers and some sacred geometry in there. It's a different way of looking at a number system or even dimensional based. So the first color is actually we have all right. So the colors that they give you, the standard kind of colors of the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. All right. So that's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. All right. So that's seven colors. What we're going to call the primary colors. Okay. Because in infrared you can't see, and ultraviolet you can't see. Okay. So ultraviolet essentially is white. That's where it blazes off, where it goes from ultraviolet into white, and then it blazes off into beyond what you can see. Okay. So we have we're equating the different numbers with the different colors on here. So the first color is actually the one is actually a brown, like a muddy brown, which you don't really see it on here, but it's kind of a mud. It should be a muddy brown. And then the next one up would be a red, a cherry red, uh, and then you have orange. So red is one, or the Adobe mud brown is one. Red, proper red, is two. Then you have orange. Then you have a light yellow, or I guess a dark yellow. Sorry, and then there's a light yellow, and then there should be a bright yellow, and that should get you to about four. Okay. Then you have a green, which starts at five, the middle. Then you have blue green, which is a six. And so as you'll notice, as you go out here, six, the blue green, which is aqua, right? You have six. Now this, you'll see right here right here with the yellow and the green, before we even get to the blue, all right? Uh, so the green, all of this combination, brown, the Adobe, red, uh, orange, yellow, and a light green. Okay. There's two greens. There's a light green and then a dark green because you have two heart um, uh, uh, points there, two heart chakras. You have two. There's a light green and there's a dark green and then a light green. All right, or a light green then a dark green. All right. So the first five, one to five, are there in the middle. This middle circle here. Okay, so that is approximately about the middle of it. Approximately the green. The extent of the green is the core, like the bullseye. The middle of it. All right. So as we move out for the numbers, you see one red and then a red orange, and then you see them expanding out this way. This way. As the number gets bigger, the leaf, like I'm calling this a leaf, and all of these have a leaf. Okay, get bigger, grow taller, grow out further. So you see, it's kind of stacked up like a pyramid shape, looking at it from the top down. Okay, and what you have is two different functions. You have the radius of the circle as the size, and then you have inside the circle, you have going from, say, here it's noticeable, going from the green to the blue, right? So you have a lighter blue and then a darker blue. So you have the concentric circles, okay, and the concentric circles, but in between these points of the division of the circle, at the in between these points, which are evenly spaced, you have the point where you have this straight line where the points line up, and then you have the furthest inside of that the circle will go. Okay, so if you look at it, it'll start making a lot more sense to you of what's going on, and you can see the numbers and counting out red, orange, yellow, green, indigo, blue, indigo, violet, and there's a couple of shades of violet in there. There's the red, So you see, roughly speaking, how the sacred geometry of the numbers matches up with the different shapes, the natural shapes around you. And this is supposed to be a butterfly with 4 wings and a head, so that equals 5, essentially. And then a turtle with, 2 flippers in the front, 2 feet in the rear. It's got a tail and the head, that equals 6. And it's got the green, right? So the green is the ending of the shell, or the shell is the ending of the green, and then it goes out into the extremities of the turtle, which you see here. And the head, it's still a little green, and it's still a little green, blue, going from blue to green, there's still a little there. So you can see how it's kind of weaving in and out. The pattern is weaving in and out between the different elements of nature, going from the 4 to the 5, morphing. Like this, the morphic resonance. It's one of the things that they had kind of showed me about this. So this, I don't have a better demonstration to give for dimensions, but this seems to be the best one that I can find. It's one that I did. It's no one else's. It's not a copyright issue. And so this seemed like a great demonstration to give this. All right. So with that said, I'm going to make some coffee and then go back to reading. Okay. I'm back. Coffee's done, nice and hot. Out of smoke. All right. So hopefully you took this as a good opportunity to pause and take a stretch. I think I had warned you this was going to be a little bit long, and I tried to keep down all the extraneous stuff, and still it's long. And I don't think I've repeated myself, except for saying this was going to be long. Anyway, all right. So on with the I don't want to call it a half, but the second half. Okay. Onward and upward. All right. So de facto, the first rule or law they give you in conditioning the pupils or the students' thinking is that dimensions are predominantly angled, or are angles, or angled, or matters of degrees to square. The term square is used in many ways to show legality and legitimacy. For example, it's a square deal, we're squared up, actually, hold on, being squared up, etc., are complementary and used as praise. Or even, here's another one, the right rights. Things to think about. The language that you're using. Things to think about is the language that you're using channels and conditions your perceptions. And so part of the difficulty of having these discussions is the language that we use versus what we're intention and what we mean. Yet, the length, width, and height are units of measurement, all of which degree on the same dimension, whether it is inch, foot, or yard. Okay. Okay. Let's see. All right, so I went over that. All right, so inches of dimension. All right, so let me just say something. This is not the easiest stuff for people to wrap their heads around. A lot of people aren't used to building terminology, have never worked in construction, don't build, don't understand any of that stuff, and that's fine. I'll do my best to introduce this to you the best I can. A lot of this of itself is a fairly difficult, concept, difficult things to wrap your head around. Like we are asking you to change a lot of the foundation to what you've been thinking relative to the dimensions, and that's not a that's a sort of difficult thing to do, just to start out. Just, oh, hey, change the way you've been taught, right? They keep repeating this stuff for a reason, to get you to condition your head in a certain way, and then to get you to unthink it. Like it's difficult. So either this has to resonate with you or it does not. All right, so I'll just say that. So, but when we talk about a tubaphore, what is a tubaphore? Well, it's a big bass instrument in the orchestra. No, A, a, a tubaphore is another name for a 2x4, but that's a nominal 2 inches by 4 inches by 8 feet. Okay, so they don't give that to you in inches, the 2x4 by 8 feet in inches. It's two, so there's two dimensions. One is inches and one is feet. Okay. So, so the scale, in part, how do I say this? Dimensions are a dimension. The dimensions are essentially, they're of the mental, they're of the temporal. They exist in a mental space, and it's not until they become intersected with the densities that they become actual. And the densities are just basically repeating patterns. So you have, a pattern that repeats, and then it moves up an octave, or it repeats and it stays in a circle or a cycle, or it repeats but not quite exactly in the same place, or these kind of things. And that's what gives you density, as opposed to the dimension, which are the imposed rules. Dimensions are the imposed rules upon how the density is going to act in a way. The dimensions are the rules imposed upon the densities, but the densities are there to contain the dimensions. I think that's a good way to put it. They act together, like the weft and the weave, the loom and time. I think that's a good way to think about it. I've given that example before, and again, a lot of this is in relevance to the Schumann resonance harmonics of how to help better whether you may not, whether you know it or not, whether it's obvious or not. A lot of this information is designed to help you read and understand better the Schumann resonance harmonics graphs that you're seeing in Tomskin Points Beyond. Thank you. All right, so we're talking about, generally speaking, the distillation of densities, I think is the best way to put that. Okay. I've said this before. Measurement is a value, is the value. After the values 1 to 9 are used to express a consecutive number, a function is needed. 0 is a function, not a number. All right, so we talk about a placeholder instead of a value keeper. So like 0 does not have a value, but it's used as an imaginary number to hold a place. Right? And we do this by abstracted logic, such as a 0, such as a decimal. Right? That's another thing. The 0 and the decimal are used a lot of times interchangeably. A comma is a good designator they use. Different symbols represent different denominations, different ways to group, so that you can look at a glance, there's a number or a symbol, a function. It's a function essentially. It's a letter or a symbol that represents a number value, which is beyond the simple 1 to 9. All right. the dimensions, these dimensions, or as you're taught, these dimensions need to be identical and uniform, yet are all squared up to their 90 degrees as the base or the standard. Okay, that may be a little difficult to wrap your head around in an easy.
Okay. Essentially what this means is that when I say these dimensions need to be identical and uniform, yet squared up to 90 degrees as the base or standard as a function of the Cartesian coordinate system. All right, so I'm hoping for you to have seen this drawn out on I probably should find you an example of this, of the 390s all kind of back to back, to give you that XYZ axis of where the nexus point, the 0 point starts. It's basically what's showing you is the XYZ equal the parameters of the grid, and the measurements on the side give you the length, height, like I said, width, and the parameters and dimensional scope of the Cartesian system. All right. So that's, I'm just kind of reviewing that everything that, that in order for their view of dimensions to work, everything's got to be square up to 0 at 90 degrees, 90, 90, 90. Okay. All right. However, you have been tricked and fooled and bamboozled. I almost bit my mouth. You've been tricked and bamboozled, and you have been fooled, lied to. This should not come as a surprise to you, but this is where it's been done and how it's been done and why. Reality frequently does not square up to the perfect idealization inherent in math, or what they would like to tell you is inherent in math. Okay. All right. So this is going to end part 1, it looks like. I should say it's not. This is going to be 2 parts to this particular thing. This is really a lot longer than I thought it was going to be originally, having now read through it. All right. So I'm going to break this up into 2 parts. This is the second video. The next one will be the third video. And I'm even going to put that. Just so we have a sense of understanding of where we are in place. Like I said, I've already done one on dimensions and densities. Okay. This first one, it's the introduction of dimensions themselves as such. And learning, you unlearning what you already know as a major deal. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm at 1 hour, 8 minutes. I'm going to play like 2.5 minutes of music. I don't want to play too much, but if you followed along this far, you deserve to have some, some musical, outro here. I think that's only fair. So let's see, because you know how it is, what we do here. The music is to cushion or soothe the heavy-duty stuff, and I know I've just given you a bunch of that, so I think some music might help. Or maybe I'll give you 3.5 minutes of it. You all deserve 3, and this is a good beat. 3.5 or whatever it feels good. Maybe closer to 4. I don't know. But I mean, what the hell? If you stuck around for an hour and almost 10 minutes, you deserve to have some good music, right? Just and a lot of you that stick this out, that are here this long, listening to me ramble like I am right now, you all appreciate the good music, and you thank me for it, and I, Aaron loves hearing that. So, all right, so I got something here. This was actually a really good mix, and so I was like, oh, okay, you'll be hearing more of this. All right. So,
thank you all for being here, and I will see you in part 2, which I'm going to do shortly, and then I'm going to go to bed. Anyway, so good night.
Each time I get it, that thing gets better.